basically a given that presidential candidates pick running mates from the same party, but has it always been that way?
Tony's asking, has there ever been or could there be a case where the president and vice president are from different parties? Here's Victor Puente with the answer to that good question.
Well, it could and has happened in the past, but isn't likely to happen again. For the first few presidential elections, there were no vice presidential candidates. That's because the top vote getter became president. Whoever came in second was vice president. In 1796, that led to rivals John Adams, who was a Federalist, and Thomas Jefferson, a Democratic Republican, serving as president and vice president. 4 years later, Jefferson would defeat Adams, and Aaron Burr would be his vice president. In 1804, the 12th Amendment would change the way elections were carried out, making it so vice presidents were elected on a separate ballot, although now they run together on the same ticket. During his second term in 1864, Republican Abraham Lincoln picked Democrat Andrew Johnson as his running mate. This was following the Civil War. He was trying to unite the country. Johnson became president after Lincoln was assassinated. The only case of this in the modern times was when reports came out that John McCain considered Joe Lieberman, an independent who had formerly been a Democrat, to be his running mate in 2008. He ended up choosing Sarah Palin. If you have a good question, just email us. Goodquestion@WKYT.com. I'll see you on WKYT Mornings.